This channel's no stranger to criticizing high-res studios and their somewhat questionable development practices, and unfortunately, it seems that I still have more to be critical of. Today's discussion is brought to you by Realm Royale's really bad hit scan weapons patch. Let me preface this by saying that overall I still really enjoy Realm Royale, and I still think it has a lot of potential in it. However, I don't think the developers understand what they're doing. On Friday, July 6th, they released a patch called the Hit Scan Test 2 patch. This patch introduced a number of things. It added an assault rifle as a hit scan weapon. It buffed the burst rifle and made it a hit scan weapon. It made the revolver and heirloom rifle also hit scan weapons. And it introduced the SMG, another hit scan weapon. Unfortunately, just about every single one of these weapons is insanely strong, to the point where you'd rather have a legendary one of these weapons rather than having your class's legendary weapon. I mean, really, why have an axe, or a stone spear, or a sniper rifle when your SMG, or assault rifle, or burst rifle can literally just melt people in a matter of a second or two? There's a lot of things wrong with this patch. But you might be saying, hey, why make a video about a patch in a game that's in an alpha state? Isn't this what alpha's supposed to be doing? Isn't it supposed to be testing features of the game and implementing new things and seeing what works and what doesn't? Well, under normal circumstances, you'd be right. But I don't think Realm Royale is in normal circumstances right now. About a month ago, whenever I made my video about Realm Royale and how I actually enjoy it, I talked about how it reached a very high concurrent player count on Steam charts, a number that any developer would dream of having. It peaked at 104,557 players. That's a lot of people, and I'm sure high-res studios were beside themselves with joy and with pride that their game, their brand new game, has achieved this number. I would be, and they deserve to be happy about that. They deserve to be prideful of that. But that number is a bit of a double-edged sword. Like I said at the top of the video, I'm no stranger to criticizing high-res studios or its questionable development practices, and in fact, that was one of my major complaints about Paladins whenever I made my Battleborn versus Paladins versus Overwatch video 2-ish years ago. I criticized them for changing the game too much, too fast, and creating a sort of sense of whiplash for the players, at least for me, because there was a lot that was changing at that time. But fast forward 2-ish years later, and now we have Realm Royale, and they're doing the same thing. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're going to be introducing crazy new mechanics and weapons and things that shake up the game in a big way, the alpha period is the time to do it. And high-res in the past has been guilty of going into beta and then still doing those huge shakeups. So they're at least doing fine in keeping Realm Royale in an alpha state, but like I said, there were 104,000 people that liked this game enough to play it at the same time. However, yesterday's peak was just under 14,000, and right now, as of recording this video, it's just under 15,000, and I believe that's going to be today's peak, if not 16 or 17,000, which is still a respectable amount of players, don't get me wrong. However, in only a month, the concurrent player count, the peak concurrent player count, has dropped over 80,000 players. That's big. That's very big. For a game that was riding a hype train, this is sort of normal. You're going to have a high peak player count whenever launch happens, whenever it first comes out and the big streamers get a hold of it. And then over time, it's going to slowly drop until it finally reaches what's sort of a plateau, and just kind of plateau right there. However, this seems to be a very, very large drop. And I think a big reason for this are the patches that high-res has introduced over time since that 104,000 player count. The patches, while they have a lot of good things that are being introduced to the game, are also introducing really bad things, like mages two-shotting people with a fireball and a shotgun, or shotguns being completely overpowered to the point where you'd rather have that than your class weapons. All these hit scan weapon changes, and a big change to the forge and looting mechanics such that you couldn't even craft your class weapon anymore. You had to hope to get lucky and loot it from a treasure chest. And more recently, the hit scan weapons and their insane power. And like I keep saying, alpha's the time to do this, but when you have 104,000 players, when you make huge sweeping changes like this, it's going to chase people away. I know high-res at their core, wants to make a game that people want to play. They want to make a game that they find fun and that other people find fun. But it currently seems like Hi-Rez doesn't really know why their game is or was fun to people. There's a reason why it hit 104,000 concurrent players. And unfortunately, there's also a reason why 80,000 of those concurrents are no longer playing. Patches like the one that's live right now aren't really helping. The Forge change that I mentioned went over the course of a weekend. And because Hi-Rez Studios are developers with their own personal lives, they mostly don't work on the weekends. So that patch went out on a Friday, and then everybody who hated it was stuck with it for the weekend, and a lot of people probably quit during that time. And similarly with this Hit Scan Weapons Test 2 patch, that's going on for the entirety of this weekend, along with a really big bug that was actually hotfixed out, where you were unable to loot weapons from enemies that you killed. That was almost there for the whole weekend, but they actually hotfixed that one out because that was a pretty big bug. But overall, most people really dislike this patch, and it seems like it's because it takes away a lot of the feel of what makes Realm Royale unique. It just brings it more close to a PUBG or a Fortnite. And playing during this weekend, I've used my abilities less, and I've had to rely on my abilities less than I ever have in the history of Realm Royale. And that's crazy to me. I mean, Realm Royale is all about the usage of abilities. I mean, I guess it's not all about the usage of abilities, but that's one of the things that makes it unique. The relatively lower time to kill, and I guess what people are calling RPG mechanics in the form of all of these abilities, like the Fireball, Ice Block, Turret, Charge, Heroic Leap, Blink. These are what made Realm Royale unique, and instead of doubling down on what makes it unique, they're pushing it more towards what feels like it's trying to become a Fortnite clone to a lot of people. Now I want to show you something. Here's a few images of Hi-Rez Eras in Twitch chat talking about and defending these automatic hit scan weapons. And I quote, "Just as a reference, the DPS on the hit scan weapons is about 40% to 50% less than other BR games like Fortnite or PUBG. They are not really more deadly, people are just not used to them, I guess. If you compare to Fortnite weapons as an example, we have similar drop-off, recoil, bloom, etc., with 40% less damage. Compared to any other shooter, it's still the lowest DPS." Oh my god. Excuse me, this... Okay, let me put this plainly, Mr. Eras, CEO of Hi-Rez Studios. This isn't Fortnite. This isn't PUBG. This is its own game with its own map and its own rule set and its own abilities and its own time to kill and its own health pools. Who cares how a weapon in one game stacks up to a weapon in another game? Nobody. Nobody except probably you. This shouldn't even factor into your equations. This doesn't matter. Fortnite has deployable cover. Fortnite has a different shooting model. PUBG uses completely projectile weapons, I believe. I haven't actually played it, but I'm pretty sure it's completely projectile weapons with 0 hit scan weapons. And I think Fortnite is a mix of both, but still, you're comparing apples with SUVs. It doesn't work, man. I don't care if it's the lowest DPS. I don't care if we're just not used to them. We don't want this game to be like Fortnite. We don't want it to be like PUBG. We want it to be like Realm Royale. And I guess, of course, you're the ones that decide what like Realm Royale actually means, but you know, this is stupid. You're now on record for saying this stupid stuff. Come on, man. Let me show you another picture. I don't know where this one is from, but it's another picture of Hi-Rez Eras saying something. This one is a month ago, on June 12th, 2018. Hi-Rez Eras says, "Automatic weapons are not really good for the game. They are actually lower skill in most situations." So why did you introduce them, bro? Huh? Answer me that. Why'd you introduce them? You admit that they don't belong in the game. So you go in and you introduce them. And you don't just introduce them, you buff them to the point to where they're completely way too strong, and then you leave the patch going over the weekend, pissing a lot of people off. Like I said, I don't think Hi-Rez really knows what people like about Realm Royale, because it seems like they're moving further and further away from what people enjoyed about it. This was supposed to be the more fantasy-style Battle Royale, with abilities and magic and swords and all that crazy stuff. Look, I understand that if you just kept the game the way it was when it was at 100,000 players, it still would have declined quite a lot because then there's no patches. But you really need to try and figure out why people specifically are drawn to this game instead of the other battle royales, and capitalize on that. Continue to make that fun. Continue to expand that. If you're going to introduce large changes like hit scan automatic weapons, maybe do that on PTR, and maybe do it a little more incrementally than you are. Like I keep saying, alpha is when you want to do stuff like this, but when you have so many players, you don't want to chase them off. It's rare for any game to ever get a second chance in this game development market. There's just way too many coming out every single day. You need to be more careful if you want this game to live. Anyway, that forge change that I mentioned earlier was removed from the game at the beginning of the next week, and I have a feeling that a lot of these hit scan automatic weapons are either going to be nerfed into oblivion or just outright removed at the beginning of the week. But I don't know, man. Hi-Rez keeps doing this, and every time this happens, my faith in the game and in the developers goes down just a little bit more. So hopefully they can regain that faith and they can regain that trust and they can regain a lot of their players, because I would love to see Realm Royale succeed. In spite of how much of a meme it is that I am the anti-paladins guy, I actually really like Hi-Rez. They've made a lot of games that I've spent lots of hours in, so I really want to see them succeed, even if Erez says really stupid stuff. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Make sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section below, but please don't criticize me too hard because I'm in early access. If you liked the video, hit that thumbs up button. If you disliked it or you disliked the way that I ragged on this early access game, hit that thumbs down button and subscribe for more awesome gaming content like this in the future, and I will see you next time.